Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I did quite well in the raffle last night at the Orchid Society meeting. I got some chocolate, which I sampled when I got home. I'll dip into those now and again. We don't want a chocolate fest. And I got this thing, which is a sort of flask with a pretty map on Punta Cana. I'm not quite sure where that is. Caribbean, I think. Obviously somebody bought that back from holiday and then decided they didn't want it. That'll come in useful. And I got this fern. It's not an outdoor fern, it's not hardy, so it's got to stay in the house. I'll just get it out in the light. It can grow quite large, I am told. And it's going to have to put up with the grow room, simply because the air would be too dry in the house. Now these leaves are actually, they're supposed to be a bright green. There's something on them, looks like calcium deposits. Possibly somebody's had them in a fogger. Some water on one of the leaves and see what happens. Yeah, they're actually a lovely bright green underneath. So I'll give that a go under the tap and wash those leaves off. Obviously with coating like this on the leaves, they're not going to photosynthesize like they should do. It's got an unusual base, sort of grows the leaves out of like rhizomes. I'll look that one up and see if it needs anything special. You know, I mean, it might be a tropical fern, in which case it needs higher temperatures, which causes a bit of a problem because it won't get them out here, not at this point. But anyway, you know, I'll apologise, my car's still playing up, so I had to get a lift to the Orchid Society last night, and in the confusion, there's a guy lives literally up the end of my road that also goes to the Orchid Society, so I sort of knocked on the door and scrounged a lift there and back, but I forgot my camera, so I didn't get to film the plants, which is a shame. There were some absolute stunners there. It's quite amusing actually. There was a nobly in full bloom, and I went and had to chat to the grower, and he said, actually I've had that years, it's never done that before. So something has been different this growing season, and there's quite a few of the noblies just decided to bloom in early winter instead of waiting until spring. He was adamant that his has always been a late winter, early spring bloomer. You know, he dries it off a bit in the winter, and it's always behaved itself, and this year it's just bloomed 3 months early. Simple as that, and that's what mine's doing. There's a few around playing games this year. I don't worry about it too much on the grounds that if the plant wants to do it, it's going to do it. The reasoning behind it, I don't know. But a lot of growers have said at the Orchid Societies, both of them, that this has been a funny growing season. And none of them can put their finger on why, but quite a lot have said they've got plants that have behaved differently. So something unusual in the UK summer this year. I don't know, maybe we had a much brighter early start to the year and things started growing earlier, which means they would get to the point where they're maturing, ready to bloom, earlier in the season. So they've just got on and done it. You know, that's the only thing I can think of. I haven't noticed anything dramatically different this summer, I must admit. Not in my environment. Everything seems to have been... We had a couple of heat waves, I do know that, where the old foggers struggled to keep up. You know, the extractor fan and the inlet fan were going full blast for quite a large period of some days. And, you know, that reduces my humidity, and the foggers have to work a lot harder to keep up. You know, I mean, I did get up to just over 30 degrees on some days, but not what you would say an excessive amount. That's happened in previous summers before. Anyway, I can't put my finger on it, whatever it is. So, no film of the plants. I'll tell you what else was there. There was a Laelia anceps there that had 5 spikes with 3 blooms on each spike. I have never seen such a spectacle from a Laelia anceps. So many blooms in absolute perfection, all at the same time. You know, it'd be just my luck. I mean, I've got 2 spikes coming on mine. You know, I'll get one in bloom and those will go over as the next lot open and they won't be out together. But, I mean, that's a wait and see. But, yeah, 15 blooms, all in absolute perfection. Probably only been open a week. That was stunning. There were some weird and wonderful plants that I wouldn't even attempt to pronounce, let alone know how to look after. But that's the way. There's quite a lot of the Orchid Society members that seem to only want something if it's incredibly unusual, you know, and that's what they go for. Maybe they just like the challenge. Because the problem is, the farther away from the norm that you get, the less information you'll find. You start getting the real rarities, you know, something that only comes up for sale once in a blue moon, and you may be the only one in that Orchid Society that's got it, and there's no information on the internet. What are you going to do? So you venture into the realms of darkness at your own peril, because some of the care might be guesswork. If you can find out where it grows in its natural environment, you can have a very calculated guess. I mean, that's where I base most of my information on. I've got a funny day out here today. It is a watering day, but I know there's some plants are still wet, which is a nuisance because that means they'll have to be avoided and I'll have to come back to them in a few days' time, not in 8 days' time. So I just got a funny watering. I'm going to have to go round all the pots, except for the ones I did yesterday. I did the Masdevallias and Restrepias and the like yesterday, and I did the indoor plants, so the Paphiopedilums and the indoor Phalaenopsis have been done. So it's only what's out in the grow room. But out of what's out here, some things will have dried off because they're in fresher bark, and some things won't. So I can't just randomly go around and water everything like I do in the summer, you know. I mean, in the summer if it's still damp, well, blow it. I'll chuck some more water on while I'm there because it will use it up. But this time of year it won't. We were down to freezing last night outside. I think that's the first time we've hit the magic 0. But I could tell it was going to be a cold night. My heater was cutting in and out before I went out to the Orchid Society meeting. So like 6 o'clock in the evening the heater had already started to function. So the temperature dropped like a stone last night. So be it. I mean, the heater does its job out here. It stops it dropping down too low and just keeps the temperature ticking over. I don't know where we got to last night. Probably down to about 14. Now see, I got a problem. I'm going to have to move this. Where it sits here is so that I can see it from the house. But unfortunately, it's right in the line of fire of the heater, so I could be getting a misread on that in its position. I need to move it where the heater doesn't directly get at it. I'll also have to think about what plants live where, because this end here is in the direct line of fire, and although the big circulating fan comes on at the same time and stirs it up, obviously that heat's going to get pushed into here, not there, and not there. So I think I'll move that and see if I can get a more accurate reading. Because I mean, when I left to go to the Orchid Society last night, the actual temperature on there said 14.2, and the thermostat said 13.8, the one that controls the heater. So it was obviously dropped right down last night. We've got sun today. We have bright sunshine, all that lovely light streaming in. And in another couple of weeks, that shade netting's coming down. Not off. What I'm going to do is just roll it down so that it sits about there. So that all these resting dendrobiums over here can take full advantage of that direct sun for the few hours. It's not like it's going to get it all day. And that's more light than they will have ever had. Yeah? Every winter, slight adjustments. Last winter was the first time I took that shade netting off. It worked well, so same again this year. But I've never taken that shade netting off, ever. Not since the first time it went up. And in the midsummer, there's a second layer goes on there, because it's too strong otherwise. It starts singeing the leaves, or heating them up. So I'm going to try that this winter, which means some areas in here are going to get much brighter light than they've ever had. And I need to reposition plants so that those that need to take full advantage of it are right in the line of fire, and then those plants can help keep that direct sun off of some of the others that probably would suffer a bit. So we'll have a play with that. But a couple of weeks' time, shortest day is somewhere about the middle of December, you know, so it's only a few weeks away, and, you know, once we get out the other side of Christmas, the day lengths start to come up again. Slowly, but at least it's happening. So, yeah, I still keep looking at this Nobly. Noblies are playing games this year, and I do not want that one to play games. I want that one dormant. Or, you know what I mean? I don't mean totally dormant, but I mean fully being rested. It's getting a lot of extra light this year being put there. You can see it's got filtered light directly on the leaves. That's good stuff. So that's brighter light than it's had before, and there's no sign of any buds, and all the canes have stopped growing. So that one is resting nicely now, as opposed to this one that's playing silly bees. Still, it happens. Oh, this is opening up. There's, believe it or not, there's actually 4 buds on that spike, on that growth. There's another couple of buds coming up here. That one's got 4. I've only ever had 2 at once. This one has now cracked open. There's 2 or 3 in there. Now these last about 3 weeks. These I would class, this is their first full day. So in 3 weeks' time, this spike should be going over. But prior to then, that spike, and that spike should also be open. I think that's going to be a really nice display. If only that could have been ready to take to the Orchid Society last night. Grrr. That's the thing. I don't grow my plants to show them. It's not the reason I keep my plants. But if one happens to be in a good state at the point where there's a meeting or a show, then I'll take it along. But that's not why I grow them. That's like it's like an afterthought, you know, a little bonus, I suppose. But yeah, if the meeting had been in 2 weeks' time, that could have been a bit of a showstopper. There's a lot of people have trouble with this. This is it was Sophronitis cernua. It's Cattleya now. Playing about with the names. One thing I have noticed with this one, if you've got one of these, this is one of the only Cattleyas that will get marks on the leaves if water sits on them. So when I water this, it's a mount. I'm bound to get some water on the plant. I give it a good huff and puff after I've watered it to make sure there's no droplets actually sitting on the leaves. I can show you one. See that leaf down there? That was water damage. Yeah? So I'm aware that it can happen. There's another little leaf there with a little bit of damage on the edge. Yeah? So if you have got one of those, try and keep the water off the leaves. Water on leaves in high humidity with good temperatures is probably not a problem, but you know, with lower temperatures, if water sits on the leaves, it's not so good. Yeah. So anyway, if you've got one of those, I hope yours is blooming or coming up to blooming. It seems to be this one for me has bloomed on and off. I can't say it's got a blooming season. But this year, it pushed out a lot of new growths at the same time. Consequently, they're all blooming at the same time. There's another one there. The leaf's not open. But given the width of that leaf, it's fat. So it's got a swelling inside. So there's going to be some more in there. So, yeah, nice little plant, that one. I'll see if there's anything else. Oh, that's finally gone. I know Rose was interested in how long these blooms ought to last. Well, they're going to fall off if I waggle them. So the Bulbophyllum Elizabeth and Buckleberry has finally gone. I'll check my notes and do a pop-up, because certainly Rose was interested in how long this particular spike lasted so that she could compare with hers. So I'll stick a pop-up for that. Nothing much else going on at the moment, but if I see anything else I'll film it. Yeah, I really don't think there is much that's changed out here, so it might be a short video. I know they don't happen often, but they happen occasionally.